You have just tuned in to Tales from the Merworld with me, Ameera Beth, exploring the mysteries of Atlantis and Lemuria. Are you ready to explore and validate the possibility that we are much more than our Earth bodies, and that we exist simultaneously in many different realms and realities? In this show, I will offer esoteric concepts like 5D, sacred geometry, the mer beings, and lost lands like Atlantis and Lemuria. Be ready to feel empowered and an active part of the changing Earth. Tales from the Merworld Radio starts now. Aloha, welcome back to Tales from the Merworld Radio. I have a very special show for you today, and I'll just let you know that this is my very last live show on TTR. I've had an amazing year. We're actually going to record one more show, but it's going to be pre-recorded on the 21st. And I just want to take a minute to acknowledge the whole team at Transformation Talk Radio. And, everybody who has helped me this year, everybody who has produced this program and supported my show. Thank you very much. And I'm excited at how I get to end this season with a guest we had on about a month or so ago, the wonderful James Gilliland. And we're going to get to that. We're going to get to his bio in just a second. But first, I want to mention that, we are in, of course, the final month of the final year of 2020, where so much is happening. So much is afoot. We're on the verge of the 12/12 gateway. There's going to be an eclipse on the 14th right after that. And then we go right into the solstice, where we have this amazing Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, which is really going to kick off a brand new era on this planet. When two great big planets like Saturn and Jupiter come together, and they're basically going to be within a degree of one another, they're going to form something in the sky that is going to look like the Star of Bethlehem. And when I felt into and I talked to my guides about the solstice and about this conjunction, I was told that the solstice 12/21 was going to be the kickoff to the reversal of the spiral of Atlantis. We would be going through the centrifugal point of the hub, beginning the reversal that happened through the fall of Atlantis. So on the 21st, I'll be doing my final show. It'll be a pre-recorded show that'll go up on the 24th. But just to give you a little bit of heads up that, the ending of this grand finale year is no joke. And it's a spectacular way to move into the new earth energies and to get ready for 2021. And if you guys think that all this stuff that's been going on in 2020 is just going to kind of go away and we're going to restart a brand new year with not in the throes of all the drama, that's absolutely not going to happen. It's just that I believe solutions will start to remedy themselves. And all of this that has been stirred up, all the chaos, all the drama, all these different transformations, all the things we've been asked to rise up and claim for ourselves, our sovereignty, our new realizations, we're going to gain a whole new perspective or a whole new way of navigating the new earth energy through solutions. And as we talk to James today, I'm going to ask him to share a little bit more about how he feels about the extraterrestrial influence and that incoming in 2021 and beyond. We're going to talk about and the extraterrestrials in the Atlantean influence. And, if you're not familiar with James, I'll just give you a quick rundown on who he is and what he does for the world. So James is an international lecturer, a minister, a counselor, multiple near-death experiencer, songwriter, contactee, and best-selling author of Reunion with Source, The Ultimate The Ultimate Soul Journey, and The Anunnaki Return. He's the founder of ECETI Ranch, ECETI Stargate YouTube, and he hosts As You Talk Radio and BBS. He's appeared on numerous times on Coast to Coast, where he was the first to do an extremely successful global intention experiment for contact. ECETI Ranch and James have been featured on Ancient Aliens, the History Channel, ABC, Fox News, and BBC. So what does ECETI stand for? Enlightened Contact with Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And coming straight from the beautiful beaches of Mexico, straight to the beautiful beaches of Kauai. Welcome, James, to the show. I love your background. I love how we're matchy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, it's really funny because what you just said was the exact same information I got, is that we're going through kind of a remake of the days of Atlantis and Lemuria. And, in the days of Atlantis, the Atlanteans, not all of them, but most of them, the leaders worshipped knowledge and the intellect and science. And they were going in that direction.
Right.
And they had a lot of technology, and then they started misusing the technology to control and dominate others, and in a very abusive way. And so if you look at what's happening right now, well, let me explain. The Lemurians, or the people of Mu, they believed in the law of one, where everything was one. They helped those less fortunate to rise to the occasion. They saw the creator in all creation, and they worshiped the unseen God in everyone and everything. And so they started to kind of clash, and the people of Mu, or the Lemurians, they kept warning the Atlanteans, you need to stop. You're going in the wrong direction. You can't continue on this path. And then so in those days, I mean, their technology was pretty intense. And so whoever struck first with the best technology usually won, whatever war happened. And unfortunately, they had some psychopaths that were in the military field of Atlantis, and they took their beam ships up and flew over and just did a total meltdown on a lot of the major cities and things. It was a real mess. And people think that the Lemurians, or the people of Mu, were just wearing skins and things like that. No, they were very
advanced.
Yeah, very advanced. They had spacefaring craft. They were in space. They're going back and forth as well. And one of the scientists there, hooked a meteor up and just dropped it in on Atlantis,
Right.
Yeah, so we have the Atlantic Ocean, the big hole.
Right.
But,
and so, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay,
Well, and basically that is what happened. It split.
Yeah.
It split, and we're at that same epoch right now where you look at all the satellite technology, the 5G, the vaccinations with the trackers in them, all that stuff. It's all the same. It's all we're moving that direction. And then you have the other people rising up saying, hey, no, this is not about controlling and dominating others. It's about freedom and empowering each individual and things like that. So we're working that same thing out. And I think we're going to flip it this time and not take the same path as the Atlanteans.
And so, part of my mission here is to be a voice for the great kingdom of Atlantis, not only the Mer people, but for the Atlanteans. And, I remember the incarnation of Atlantis when it was alongside Lemuria.
Mm-hmm.
One was the masculine, one was the feminine. The Lemurian was the feminine. And for a while, for a great long time, they coexisted very well and very symbiotically. And at one point, the Atlanteans were developing so much technology, and they really thought themselves to be superior to the Lemurians, because the Lemurians were more earth-centered. They were more heart-centered. They were more oneness-centered. And even though they had a lot of technology, the Lemurian people did, they had an honoring of the organic. And so what we're talking about is a repeat of a cycle between the organic and the inorganic. The Atlantic technology became extremely AI oriented and inorganic, and they forgot who the ultimate creator is. Their connection with source, right? Like source, God is the ultimate creator, and really specifically the mother energy. The mother is the creator of all of life. And they started to take on all these inorganic creations, and their egos got really, really big.
Yeah.
And because the Lemurians really held on to the concept of the mother and the motherland, and the honoring of the cycles of nature and the cycles of life, along with their creations, there was this great war. And when the war came about between the Atlanteans and the Lemurians, because the Atlanteans held the masculine, the Lemurians held the feminine, I remember that being the split on a macrocosmic level between the masculine, the feminine, and the macrocosmic, and the masculine, the feminine, and the microcosmic. So that created the split in humanity between our masculine and feminine. We've been trying ever since to get back then. So yes, you're right. We are going to go through the 21st, and it's going to begin to rewrite that spiral of Atlantis and recreate our relationship with pure source energy and organic creation. Before we go to break, what do you think about what I just said?
Oh, I agree with that 100%. And I've seen over and over, there's a massive influx right now of the divine feminine and like, you know, the Mary energies and the House of Mary was massive. And it was the grandmothers and Mary Magdalene and Mother Mary and all. It was a very large group, and they're returning right now, along with what they call the Shekinah energies, all these other beings that, you know, there's 13th dimensional beings that are coming in that are goddesses. You know, it's unbelievable what's happening, but it's a multidimensional thing happening, and they're all pressing in right now. And wherever it has to balance, it's going to balance. It's and they understand that. It's like the places that need a real infusion of feminine energy, they're going to get that.
Right.
And the places that you know, there's not too much that needs more of an infusion of masculine energy right now, but
exactly.
I hate to say it, but you know, it's just balance. It's going to come and it's going to balance itself out again.
Yes. We're going to take a short break, everybody. When we come back, we're going to continue this discussion with James about Atlantis, Lemuria, and all things coming and looking to change from 2021 and beyond. We'll see you in just a few moments.
Tune in to the show Heart Change Consciousness with me, Dr. Trish DeRocher, as stories of inspired activism come to life. Listening to conversations with your favorite authors, change makers, and many more who practice inspired spiritual activism and transform vulnerabilities into sources of strength. Let's be inspired together through my show Heart Change Consciousness on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
Is traditional medicine not working for you? Do you still feel as if your health isn't 100%? Here at the Holistic Medical Center, Dr. Nushin Darvish and the qualified staff look through the dimensions of wellness and start a healing plan prioritized to your needs. Our physicians assess the whole you until complete health is achieved. Get the help you need by visiting drdarvish.com or call 425-451-0404.
If you've ever had a broken heart, you know how painful that can be and how long it can sometimes take to heal it. I'm Megan Edge, author of The Heart's Journey, Healing Hearts, Oracle Cards, and Guidebook, published with Balboa Press and Hay House. In The Heart's Journey, I share with you my own heartbreak and how I healed it through the beautiful hearts that found me in nature. From taking photographs of these hearts for myself, I've created this beautiful toolkit, which includes the guidebook, which has my story, how to work with oracle cards as a healing tool, and the story of each of these hearts as they cross my path. I've also created a beautiful journal. There's a pen, a bookmark, and of course, the 42 Healing Hearts Oracle Cards. You can order The Heart's Journey, Healing Hearts Oracle Cards, and Guidebook through my website, meganedge.ca, through Balboa Press, Amazon, and many other places online or your local shops. I look forward to hearing about your heart's healing.
Listen up. The wealth you receive is a result of your personal relationship with the soul of money, meaning your spiritual well-being affects your ability to create abundance. Jennifer Bloom works with people to mend the spiritual disconnects that block up the cash flow. How's your relationship with yourself? Are you in balance with the divine? I know, these are big questions, but there are answers. Take Jennifer's free money relationship quiz to learn where you need to focus your energy and watch yourself grow into the abundance you deserve. Trust the divine. Learn to receive. You are worthy of all the wealth you seek. Visit jenniferbloom.com and click on the purple banner to take the free money relationship quiz. That's Jennifer Bloom, BLOOME.com.
Aloha, welcome back to Tales from the Mer World Radio. I am your host, Ameera Beth Mer Healer, and this is a show where we explore the ancient lands of Atlantis, Lemuria, Avalon, Egypt, and even outer space. Today, I'm very excited, very thrilled to have the wonderful James Gilliland on my show. We're having a discussion about Atlantis and Lemuria and the final days and how we're about to rewrite the spiral and move into the age of the new Atlantis. And James, before we get going again, can you let people know where they can find you if they'd like more information?
Oh yeah, we're right at the base of Mount Adams in Trout Lake, Washington, and that's where it's a 70-acre ranch, and that's where the main retreat is. And they can go to ECETI.org, and there's a newsletter, and if you want to hear about my radio shows and things like that, that's all on there. All the information's on there, as long as some awesome footage of massive light ships coming over like treetop level and 200 people on the ground. It's pretty insane. We have probably the best contact of anywhere on the planet, and we're the most censored, group out there, which is a whole other story. But they don't want the spiritual side getting out, because that's
right.
really about.
But it's coming out. There's no stopping the wave. And before James and I got started on the show, he noticed the plumeria in my ear. I like to wear plumeria for all of my shows. It's very symbolic of the Hawaiian Islands, and it happens to be my favorite flower. And he threw in just before we started that plumerias are from the Pleiades. So tell us a little bit more about that. I love that.
Well, how I found out is I was actually working with the Pleiadian, and her name was Plumaria, and it's spelled a little different, than we spell it. And I go, that sounds really familiar. I go, why are you named after a flower on Earth that's on Earth? And she said, because we brought it here. And she said something like her great grandfather or something brought it here, as well as other species, a whole lot of other plant species. And so I said, well, it's been around a long time, that flower. And she goes, well, we live a long time, So I know some of them don't die, I don't think. And some of them live thousands of years. So, 2 or 3 generations could be, 3,000 or 4,000 years, basically, very easily. So anyway, but she was talking about that. And she said they did a lot of tinkering with genetics and the different colors. And they loved playing with flowers and trees and fruits and everything. And so she was talking about a lot of that, how when they came here, the first colonies were started, most of them were geneticists, and most of them were bringing things from their world and other worlds as well. And they're creating a paradise, for them to live in. And so there was a lot of engineering going on, back in the day to get it to where it is today. And it was actually designed to be an Eden, where everything could continue to evolve and prosper and reach its highest potential. And then we got hijacked, by lesser souls and beings and things like that. And that's being rectified too, during this shift that we're going through. That's being cleaned up as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can definitely tell you from living in paradise, the Hawaiian Islands are, I think, as close to Eden as you can get. There are a lot of very exotic fruits that look like they don't want to be eaten.
Yeah.
Soursop, for one. Rambutans, there's all kinds of delicious fruit that you have to look at this exterior and you think, what is this thing? And can you eat that? Like, how do I get in that? To find the little jewel, the little fruit and fats and unique plants and flowers and fruits and things like that, and just make it really exciting to be human. And to have these little discoveries of these really cool fruits.
Yeah, they have like
So when,
jackfruit here, and
yes, right.
a lot of different fruits that I've never seen before, and God, they're good. They taste so good, and I'm always trying. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm not going to do it this time. But I've always smuggled a few seeds back to grow some things in the greenhouse. But we're not doing that this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, I think we're going to go through some pretty intense changes, even weather-wise and climate-wise and things like that, where there's going to be a lot of changes in the foods that we grow and eat, and where we grow and eat them and things like that. So, I was told in the future that our area would be like tropical almost at one time. I don't know exactly when that's going to happen. And we are kind of the remnants of Lemuria as well, where we are in Washington, and so the islands are part of that, and then the Azores are part of the mountaintops of Atlantis, that are left, and England's part of that too. And it's funny, you really think about it, in England, a lot of the control factors, the Queen, the financing, everything is in England, which is the remnants of Atlantis and things like that. So it all kind of makes sense.
It does, and most of us are aware that the Earth goes through natural cycles and changes. The nature of God and life is create, destroy, recreate, and there are cycles within cycles. Everything in nature is a cycle. And the current weather cycle or climate cycle, whatever you want to refer to it as, that we're in is, it's just really part of an ever-changing, ever-evolving, organic world that we live in. And I feel like as we go into an era where, technology is always going to be important and relevant to all of us. Technology can help us, but it's like that balancing of understanding that the placement of technology can never replace the human soul. It can never replace the human immune system. And maybe as we go into being warmer and we start to have all these great superfoods and things like that, our systems, our immune systems, our bodies can continue to evolve in a way that's really conducive to our health. And we're not going to need the allopathic medicines, and all these things that have kind of like really support our sickness and not our wellness, and go back to people who understand how to be in rhythm with the cycles and natures of life, how to eat according to what our body really needs to maintain optimum wellness, get rid of the processed foods, get rid of all these genetically modified things, and go back to where we really are living not only in a state of the Garden of Eden around us, but the garden within us as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the shifts that are happening are activating our DNA, and the DNA lines, when they open up, one is telepathy. Another is being able to see forward or backward in time. There's another one that you can actually jump dimensions. There's a thing called direct knowing, where you just know what's going on. All these lines are being activated differently in each person as we go through, and we're going to become less dense physical, so we'll have more control over our bodies, and you're going to move into more spiritual or energy medicine and things like that, and start moving into spontaneous healings and things of that nature. And that's where things are headed. And I know people that have some of these technologies already. We're working with bringing those out, and we have to wait till this shift happens that we're going through. And then all these things are going to start coming out, but the tyrants have to fall. They have to implode, and the energies that are coming in are going to implode that mindset. It's not frequency specific to the process we're going through. So when that implodes on itself, then we reunite with the star nations. All these new technologies come out, new healing technologies and universal peace. All those things start happening on a global scale.
And what I've always felt and believed is that, our star families, all these mythical beings, mer beings, the Lemurians, they aren't going to lower themselves to reach us. We have to raise up to meet
Exactly.
and greet them.
Mm-hmm.
They're waiting for us and they're supporting us and our frequency and our alignment out of fear and into truth and into love. And that process it's not as easy as it sounds. It seems like it's taking very, 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 very long time, but I can't help but feel that over this next year, we are going to kind of have a breakthrough of the piercing or the collapse of the veil altogether as, more truth come out into the world about who the tyrants are and what they're doing, behind the curtain and right in our face. So, what are your thoughts about how close are we to actually having literal disclosure announced and felt on the planet?
Actually, they're starting to do it now. One of the chief scientists in Israel just came out and said that they've been working with ETs, and they said Trump knows about them too. And both of us have been, we have bases on Mars and the moon and other things. And so they've spilled the beans on that. I don't know how they're going to put that cat back in the bag, but people have to realize within the UFO community, there's a controlled narrative. And there are shills and planned opposition and people that want to control the narrative. And they're not going to allow you to step outside that box, which we do all the time. That's why we're one of the most censored people. But people don't realize that this is a very spiritual thing. These are very spiritually and technologically advanced beings that we're dealing with here. Some of them are our ancient ancestors that are returning. They're the temple builders and things like that. And they're kind of waiting for us to go through this shift, and start being a little more kinder to each other and the planet and to them, as well. So, they're not aggressive. They don't want to come and force their presence on us. Right. That's not their way.
We have free will also.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think, and I always tell people, like you're saying, we have to rise to the occasion. If you're in the intellect and you're saying, prove it, you need to come here and show me and hand me technology and things like that, that goes nowhere. You're in the ego and they don't even want to deal with that. So, but the more you meditate and do your practices and raise your frequencies and release the past, the wounds and traumas and things, your frequencies are going to go up, and they're just outside of our frequency. They can drop down and we can rise up. And that's where they want to meet us in the middle. And we have photographs of them appearing at the ranch, and Peter Slattery has amazing photographs of them. And the beings are just popping right in. You can see their whole form and everything, but they're just not quite physical. And some of the other beings, like the ascended masters, are actually taking on physical form. I mean, they look physical.
Right.
You can tell they're not quite physical, but because they ascended and took the body with them. They just didn't bail out. They took their bodies with them. So we're having a lot of that as well. And, they were just the examples. We can all do that. And that's what they've been teaching us for a long time. And then those teachings get taken over and screwed up. And I always tell people, go do some research and look up the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic, the original Lord's Prayer. It's a mind blower. It talks about cosmic birther, birther of sound and light.
Washmaya.
Yeah, totally different than they sing in the churches and things. And there's a lot of things. I don't want to go too deep into that, but they found some teachings of Jesus that he wrote, and he said, out of all my disciples, Mary was the most qualified to continue in his teachings, and that got hijacked by Paul and the rest of the crew. And she had to go into hiding. I mean, so they didn't take her out. She had to go live in a monastery her last year. So, all of that, the whole story we've been told is not the real story. And, there's people like Michal Ledwith, who was advisor to the Pope, and he has access to all the catacombs below the Vatican. And he saw all the books and the research and everything. And he's actually written a book called Saving Jesus, I think, and Deep Deceptions. He has these videos out and how Jesus became the Christ, things like that. And they're very accurate, and they tell a whole different story, So, and I think that's in every culture. Every culture has, there's the foundation, the basic foundation, the golden threads, which within every religion that we all agree on. And then it gets kind of twisted and contorted through time by men and scribes and other things with other agendas.
For me, it started with the Da Vinci Code about 15 years ago. I grew up Catholic, and I felt compelled to pick up the Da Vinci Code when I was kind of in the beginnings of my awakening. And of course, that just blew my mind right open. And I went on not only to read that book, but, Margaret Starbird, who writes about Mary Magdalene and her experience in the Catholic Church. She has many books written about, the Magdalene and her being the feminine Christ and her relationship, her marriage and family with Jesus, and how all these things about her, her lineage and her purpose have been hidden from us. And it feels like, since I read that 14, 15 years ago, so many more people are now aware of this information, and they're waking up, and they're learning to reframe everything they thought they knew about Jesus or the Christ area, the Christ consciousness, and marry that with the feminine, and realize that the divine union within us is really what is meant to light the way. And then to also look at the divine union couple as the example of where we get to grow to. And yet there are still so many who are struggling to even acknowledge or accept that this is possible. And I really feel that the two completely different timeline splits and shifts between those who are really learning to embody and open their minds and open their hearts to not being hard and set to what they feel is conditioned truth or conditioned reality, and those who are just not able to in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And so if you have any kind of advice to give to people who, like some of us have to kind of balance between those worlds because we have all these varieties of people in our life, but we really know where we want to go. We really know what we believe, and we want to go on those higher timelines. So what advice do you have for people who are maybe really trying to, come to terms with how do I let go of, some of the relationships or the thought processes or the attachments to these other people and timelines so they can really step into their own truth and source power?
I think one of the main things is to realize there's always a lie in belief. So whenever you say, I believe, don't be attached to that, because that may just go out the window very quickly with these shifting energies. And so to be open, I always say, keep an open mind, loving heart, pure intent. That'll get you through. And don't be attached to your belief system, because there's so many people that have been socially engineered. And we live right now in a world of opposites. And through the social engineering, everything has become opposite, and it's being shifted back to the way it should be.
Yes.
And just basic grounded examples are, the Justice Department is the Just Us Department. The Department of Defense has been the Department of Offense.
Reverse symbolism, reverse wording.
Yeah. Everything. You go down the line, everything that all these agencies and institutions and everything are doing the opposite of what their mandate is or what they say they're doing, and if you go into the Catholic Church, on the low levels, there's a lot of awesome people in there, and they're all trying to make their connection and commune together and things like that. But it's as you go up the higher levels, it gets pretty dark, and it goes into some pretty ugly stuff that I don't want to go into. But and that's the opposite thing and that's everything is coming up. The whole, all the deep state stuff, all that stuff is being exposed for what it is. And, and these people have taken oaths, and they're supposed to be in service to Creator and people, basically. And God and country.
They've gone with the Luciferian consciousness, and I think there's a quote in the Bible that says, in the end, good will be called evil and evil will be called good. Because exactly. I believe you're correct that we have been offered an inversion of everything that is good and just, including in the symbols and the sacred geometries that we see out in the world. Ancient esoteric symbolism in its original form was intended to help us with the creative process, to keep us connected to source. And instead it connected us to like a false matrix, to a false reality.
Well, you look at Hollywood, the music industry, and I've talked a lot about that, what's going on there and the perversion and what's happening with children and all that stuff. And so because of that, I'm being shunned out of the whole music and movie industry, or especially the movie industry.
Right.
they won't touch me now because I've been very public about that and open about that. That's part of the Mary. I tell people that the Mary energy is coming in right now. It's like Mary with a bat, and you look at the people that are on these committees to end the pedophile nonsense and child trafficking, everything. They're almost all women, and they're on these councils and committees to put an end to this. And there's some awesome men that are backing them up and doing what's necessary on the ground, and women as well, which is great. So I think we're moving in that direction to put an end to it. And I called out a lot of the Luciferian stuff, the satanic ritual stuff too, and so those guys are breathing down my neck. They're trolls, and they come in and they leave little bombs and put out the little YouTube channels or whatever, and you hear their stuff, and a lot of my friends just get really angry and upset. And I told them, I go, look, I don't even care. I said, on Facebook, I don't even look at the comments. I don't go in there. I drop the bombs and leave. I make people think, I make people look at things, and I leave. I don't go back to see who's commenting, who's upset, who's angry. Right. And it's kind of funny. And they send me all this stuff and they go, what should we do? And I go, nothing. They're going to implode. They're not frequency specific to where things are going. And I said, there's no, only the ego needs defending, and I told him, I said, I'm good with source. I've already died a couple of times. We have a great connection, and I know what it is, how it operates, and I've forgiven myself of anything I've created and gained a lot of wisdom from those things, Right. And, and so, I went through that process like everybody. And I was telling people right now, all of these people have incarnated for this time, and they're being activated, and their past, they might have had a few things in their past that may not have been, major learning experiences to figure out what they don't want. They went through these things, but right now they've been activated and they're moving forward to make this shift. And we can't hold them in the past, and we can't hold them. Right. We can't project on them what social media is projecting on them, and mainstream media. That's just pathological liars reading a script, So we have to really drop into the heart and sense and feel who these people are, what their agenda is. Do they really love this country? Are they really working in the highest and best good of the people? And things like that. And then we can see clearly what's unfolding. But if we're still looking through the blinders of social media and the mainstream media and all the social engineering that's gone on and everything else, we're not going to see, what's really happening. And now I know that's happening in Hawaii, it's happening in Oregon, it's happening in Washington, our state. The people that we thought were on the same page we were are turning out to be these incredible tyrants that are locking everything down and pushing, everything detrimental. But, and so we can't ignore it anymore. And we are in a world of opposites, and we have to back up and go, wait a second. I may not be seeing this clearly, and start looking at things with what they call the Buddha mind, the fresh mind, and sense and feel what's happening in the situation. Like, forget about what you've been told, all the other nonsense. And then you're going to see things clearly, and you're going to see the big picture on how everything's unfolding. And it's a multidimensional, I'd say war, but it pretty much is a war. It's a
war for souls.
Yeah. And there's one group that wants to control and dominate and enslave, and there's another group that wants to, restore the republic and bring freedom back and, align more with the Constitution, which is pretty close to universal law.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's what we're seeing. But it's like you hear the mainstream media say one thing, and then you look at the facts and you go, that's not what happened. That's not all what happened.
You're hearing truth. You're hearing a true speaker. If they are censored on Facebook, if they are censored on YouTube, or attacked, like you said, by these different communities, then it's probably a good chance you're hearing truth. And I want to really thank you for being willing to stand up and, take the arrows essentially to keep the truth moving forward. And, when I think about, you talked about beliefs, I believe, I always go to, in this moment, I believe. In this moment,
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
my truth.
exactly.
And that allows me to bring in the expansion of what I might discover or rediscover or believe to be true in another moment or another day, given different information that I have access to. And so many people just want to cling to, they want to be Democrat because they've always been Democrat and their family's been Democrat and they just can't see anything else, or whatever it is, whatever you want to adhere to. I want to stay Catholic because that's what I've always been. And these are my family's belief system. Well, if we keep ourselves in this box, there is absolutely no room to understand or to deepen our understanding and connection to our own individual line of truth with source and our own intuition. You're just spoon-fed, one after the other.
Yeah. And I tell people I'm neither. I'm not a Democrat or Republican, but I'm working arduously to restore consciousness and let's move in the right direction. I'm all about freedom and prosperity for everybody.
Ultimately, we're going to have Republican and Democrat Party in the future. I think that we will have something that is more egalitarian and more of a council, and something where there's men and women involved together, like in Atlantis, there was a great council that came together of 12, and the 13th being Metatron, the tiebreaker, and they worked together for the good of the entire community, or the good of the entire civilization. And I feel that's where we're going to move to.
Yeah, I've always said I'm all for a council of grandmothers hooked up to a galactic federation right now to bring balance back. And I think that would be the best thing we could do at this moment. I was going back to the other thing. I've seen people, I've had conversations, people, and they make all these statements. And again, I'm not defending either one, but the Democratic Party is not the party of John F. Kennedy. That went out the wayside. It's actually done a complete turnaround. And you have conversations with people, and they go, Lincoln, Lincoln was a Democrat. And you go, well, no, actually, he was a Republican, and they said, well, the Democrats brought out woman suffrage, and they're all for the women. And I said, no, they were totally against it. The Republicans were all for that, and equal rights and equal right to vote and everything else. Those were all Republican programs that were set up, and the Democrats are very much against it. And they go, well, the Republicans are KKK. And I go, no, KKK were Democrats,
Right.
Yeah, they were Democrats, like this. And, you hear these people making all these statements, and you just go, where do you get this information? Like, what school did you go to?
Out of our history books in high school.
Yeah. I go, who taught you this stuff? And I said, and why didn't they teach the Constitution and universal law and about being kind to each other and being kind to the planet and the basics? Where was this? So you can make decisions. You have a foundation that you can look at other things and go, oh, that doesn't work. That's out of alignment. That's not for me. That's not good for anybody, And I like the Native American saying, there's a Cherokee saying that says, if it isn't good for everyone, it isn't good, period. And they look at the next generations. But, you look at this, go, why aren't those things taught in school? Why aren't they having ceremonies? Now, some of the schools, I mean, I've been invited to talk about UFOs and ETs and things like that in grade schools in our area, and elementary schools and high schools. And I've gone, and everybody loved it. All the kids loved it and everything else. A few parents got a little pissed off and upset about it, but which is always the case.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm willing to talk to the parents. I'll have a conversation with them, and I'll show you where it's in the Bible. I'll show you where it's in archaeology. I'll show you everywhere where what I'm saying is true. And
mythology, theology, ancient history. It's all written, and we carry that in our DNA. Like, it's encoded within us. We are the living history books.
What freak people out? Every animal on this planet, the DNA of every animal we have within us.
Right.
we can communicate, and DNA is always communicating. But our mind creates a division. We separate ourselves from this and that. We're different from the tree. We're different from the bird.
Right.
And the more you do these other practices, all of a sudden nature starts communicating with you.
Right.
And you start realizing that there is no division, that everything, and there's intelligence in everything. And it'll blow you away, you know, that like all of a sudden you find out your horse is a hell of a lot smarter than you thought it was, you know, and you start communicating.
Or you hear the water talk to you, or you see the fire start to communicate with you, you know?
Exactly. I mean, I was doing a ceremony, I was doing a sweat lodge once, and I looked at this rock and it was glowing red hot, and it had a perfect face on it, and it had a kind of a mustache, but it had a frown, a really ugly frown on it. And I pointed it out to the guy and I go, oh, the rock people are unhappy right now. I said, man, I hope they're smiling at the end of the lodge. And so we went through the rounds, and I looked back, and this thing's got a big grin on its face, and the eyes and the nose are perfect, and everything. And it blew the guy's mind next to me. You know, he you know, and so they, you know, there's consciousness. Even the rocks are conscious.
Right.
Everything is conscious, you know, and things expressed through nature, through every aspect of nature. Things, you know, masters can drop into your pet and do a healing on you through the eyes of the pet. They can transfer energy through your pets, or give you messages, or things like that. And if you're open to it, the whole universe opens up and you see all this stuff. If you're not, it's not real for you, you know. And if you say that's all bullshit, you know, it is for you, you know, not for the other people. You know, because that's reality.
We are perfectly capable of talking to ourselves in DNA, and changing our own biology.
Because, you know, we all have.
We're all able to do that.
There's not one person on this planet that doesn't have Aboriginal DNA.
Right.
So that's the original people, and everything started in Australia. It didn't start in Africa. It started in Australia, and then from there to Africa. And then even the Native American, the Hawaiian, the Kahunas talk about how they came from Africa. Their old story said, well, we came here, and then originated in Africa. And then, you know, I found a spirit that came to me, and it was a very ancient Hawaiian. And I think it was Dia or something like that, or Dia. I think it was Dia. And a lot of times they don't use D in the Hawaiian language. They don't use the letter D.
There's no letter D.
Yeah. And so I go, this isn't making sense. So we double checked and said, yes. And then they said, we're very ancient. You know, we're very ancient. And then they said that they originated out of Africa. And so I go on the internet and I type in, it goes province of Dia. You know, Dia is all over Africa. And there's a Kahuna Nahi. She's not with us anymore. She was a really good friend of mine. She crossed over, and we shared a lot of information together, and we were bringing the Pleiadians in and talking to them, and it was really powerful. But you know, I got a lot of the ancient stories from her and things, and it's the same story no matter what culture you go to. When you really dig into it, you know, everybody points at the stars. Yeah. And most of them point to the Pleiades. The majority of them point to the Pleiades. You know, so it's kind of interesting.
You know, and to be here on Hawaii and to listen to an elder or kahuna take the time to sit you down and tell you a story, or to share their wisdom and their knowledge with you, there's just really nothing more special than that, than to listen to an elder pass on mythologies, you know, to pass on the wisdom and give you an imprinting in your energy field to help you remember, you know, to help me remember who I am, where I came from, and then how I can express myself the most benevolently out into the world through, you know, through that unionization with nature and the cycles of life, and for all of life. Very powerful medicine.
Yeah, there's when I was in Hawaii, when I was over on Maui, I worked with some of the elders there and other people, and we were doing clearings with a lot of the locals and going through and clearing out any wounds or traumas and childhood traumas and past life, everything. And their guides would come in, and we'd get the guide's name, and I had no idea who the guide is. And all of a sudden you see the guy crying. He said, I said, I danced to her, I prayed to her, you know, and and the names are spelling
Mm-hmm.
out. I don't know who these are, I don't know who these guides are or anything else. And it comes through, and it just shows how powerful that is, especially when you have it validated that, your prayers are working and that you
Right.
did
Somebody's
know.
listening.
Yeah, when you were a kid, you did know what was going on, but you lost that, and it helped you get back to that connection. And just watching the reunion and the tears and the healings that happen when that happens, it's amazing, and I'd write down some of these names, and I didn't know, I'd have to go find out who they were,
Right.
from some of the elders, or what. I go, who's this? They go, oh, that's Pele's
So-and-so,
sister,
yeah.
or something, whatever, I just go, okay, it's like, yeah, it was kind of funny.
And as humans, for us to have that validation of something we've known in our soul that we're doing, or someone we're talking to, or someone we feel like, to have that actually validated from another human, it is a really powerful anchoring experience.
Yeah.
It's a confidence builder, and it further just allows us to continue our co-creation, our connection with something that feels separate from us,
Mm-hmm.
that is actually part of us and within us.
Yeah.
I think all humans need that.
Yeah, definitely. And we find out that a lot of people, unfortunately, in the communities, a lot of the spiritual communities, they teach one side. They don't cover the shadow side, or that there's a multidimensional dark side as well as there is a light side, and
Right.
things like that. And in air, or they make agreements or contracts with the wrong side,
Right.
and they're getting energy or
And they have
love.
no idea. They have no idea.
They don't really realize. And a lot of times that comes up, and we'll have to clear that out and reconnect them with their main the real one, who really is there for their highest and best good. And I've been seeing a lot of this lately, and I'm kind of trying to stay neutral on, but I've seen a lot of people with reptilian guides that are not in their highest and best good.
Yeah.
Some people say there are good reptilians, but I've had dreams about that where we were rounding them up, and we were saying, and we'd go to the woman or something that was with this guy who's a reptilian, and we go, has he mistreated you? Has he been loving? Has he been supportive? And if they said no, not at all, we'd go on to the next place, And so it was kind of interesting, but I found out that if you don't know what you're doing, it's really not a good idea to connect, because when you get into the fourth dimension, anything goes. And
right.
And
anything goes, and everything.
Yeah. So you got to be careful with that, and not allow things in. And so it's so important to teach people how to heal unseen negative influences, and how to use discernment and develop your inner sensitivity, so you can
and good boundaries.
Yeah, you can sense the motive and intent of different beings when they come in, so you can tell, what's coming in, what's not coming in. But it's really important in these times.
James, thank you so much for spending this hour with me. We're just about to the end of the show. But before you go, tell us one more time where people can reach out and receive your newsletter, come visit you. Where can we find you?
The best way to do it is just go to ECETI.org, and everything's there. We have a lot of upcoming conferences and workshops and remote viewing workshops, all kinds of different workshops going on there, yoga retreats, everything. But go to the website. And we really don't open up till May or around May, because we'll be digging out of the snow probably through March and April. But that's the best way to get a hold of us. Just go to the website, and you can contact us through that. And then the phone number, everything else is there if you want to use the phone. But really, the website's the best way. And it's just ECETI.org, ECETI.org is the best way. And if you want to see the radio shows, go to ECETI Stargate on YouTube, the official channel, and either bbsradio.com, and it's As You Wish Talk Radio there.
Excellent. Thank you so much for this. Has really been a wonderful and appreciated conversation. I appreciate you taking time on your vacation and your beautiful your beautiful beach to teach us, to help us all into all the good things that are coming down next. You can find me at ameerabath.com. You can also find all episodes of Tales from the Mer World Radio at Ameerabath Mer Healer on YouTube. If you're interested in working with me personally, ameerabath.com, just hit the drop down on Work With Me. You can see all the different things that I do in past life regression therapy, Atlantean Lemurian reconnections, and so forth and so on. And thank you all for joining us for this program. Sending you oceans of aloha, and thank you for allowing me to express myself. You have been listening to Tales from the Mer World Radio with me, Ameera Bath, exploring the mysteries of Atlantis and Lemuria. Tune in live every second and fourth Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com, where we raise vibrations through stimulating conversations, exploring the mysteries of Atlantis and Lemuria. For more information or to connect with me, visit ameerabath.com.
Views expressed on this program are those of the host, guests, and callers, and do not necessarily reflect the views of the station, its management, or advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.